Hello and welcome, guys. Today I'll be going over a quick tutorial for AWS IAM. So let's get started. So this is the dashboard. We have our groups. Groups is embedded with different policies, and you attach different users to the groups depending on the different policies you would like them to use. We have users. This is where you create the principals, identities. Roles, you assign roles for different AWS resources to interact with one another, and policies, different policies, inline policies for the roles, users, and groups. Okay, so first let's create a user, and we'll navigate through this process with a newly created user. All right, let's call this user Cliff 2019. And let's give this user programmatic access so we can go on the command line, console access, create a password. Okay, and check password reset. So when you create a user, you need to assign it to a group. So for now, we'll assign it to this group. No tags, and create user. All right, so the unique credentials for the CSV, for to log into the command line. So please download the CSV. All right, and let's close. So now let's log out, log back in, and let's see if our user has been created. Okay, so now we instructed to create a new password upon your first initial login. Okay, so now we're logged in. As the newly created user, we're logged in as the newly created user. So now let's log in from the command line with the newly created user. So please open your PuTI. I'll log on to PuTI using my EC2 instance. So 1 second, please. So once you log into PuTI, you'll need to configure your PuTIs to run AWS. So let's AWS configure, and our newly created name user. Sorry. All right. So these are credentials. Let's download it. Is the access key. So your secret access key and your region. Okay, now you're logged in as the user. So now let's list the users. So okay, there you can see all our users that we have on our console. So we could go check. It's 3. users, and here you go. We have those users. All right. So now let's create a group here. Let's create a group called Blue Sky Admins, and give it administrative access. And this is your ARN, Amazon resource name. Very important. Okay, and here we go, a newly created group. So now you can attach the users to these groups as it may. Okay, so let's go on the back end and let's create groups. Let's create a group. Let's name it Blue Sky Admin 2. Okay. So here's our newly created group. So let's list our groups and see if we can see it. Okay. So this is a list of all our groups. So let's look for our newly created groups. Here's 1 and here's 2. And along with it is the ARN numbers. Okay. So now let's create a user from the backend. All right. So let's name this user. Let's name this user Cliff 2020. Okay. Cliff 2019. Okay, so we just created a new user. So now let's list that user. The same command from previous. Okay, so now let's look for our newly created user. Here you go. This is a new user, and this is the user we're currently in. So now let's create a login for the user like we did from the front end. Username, name we just created, so that's 2020. And then, as you remember, it was password required from the previous, so we're gonna initialize that as well. Okay, so we gave it a login. Now let's give it a access keys, just like from the console. Okay, username is Cliff 2020. Yes, and profile Cliff 2019. Okay, so this is the required access. This is the secret access key that's needed, and then access key. Those two will be needed to log in from the command line. So you need to write those down, save it somewhere, and then the same thing we did from the console, we just did in from the back end on the command line. Okay, so now let's log out. We need to save this. Very important. Alright, so now let's log out, log back in as the new user. Okay, you see guys, it's the same method, the same thing we did on the console, we just did on the command line. So okay, so let's log in. Let's make sure we see our user. Here we go. User set. So this user does not have the permissions, but we see we can log in with this user, and then we can give it permissions with administrative user. Okay, let's log out. MFA access, we can assign that to our users as well. Okay, so these are all our users. So this user is not assigned to a group, so that's why you don't have permissions. So add user to a group, admins, and now the user should have the permissions to move around the AWS console. Okay, so let's create a policy. I have a policy from a poly project I'm working on, so let's use that to create a policy. So create a policy, JSON. Okay, so as far as JSON files, you can go online and search, and you can find different JSON policies for whichever policies resources you desire, or you can create one yourself. Okay, we'll name it Lambda policy 11. Same thing, just for okay. All right, so we create a policy. Now let's attach the role to the policy. Lambda. So we named it Lambda policy 11. Here we go. We don't need to name that. Then just name it Lambda policy 11, and then we create. So now we set a row. So a perfect example. Let's just assume we're creating an instance. So we launch an instance. Let's use this and my